I periodically test 3D AI models to see what the latest is with the technology and to look at whether you could use this in a game project. I've gotten several requests to make videos when I do a test, and I've owed you guys a Meshy video for a while, so here that is. Now, this video is going to be a little different than your typical showcase because I'm going to have Meshy generate models using a reference from game assets our studio has already built. That way, we can compare what AI generates against an actual production-ready game model. Each model is going to be rated in 3 areas: texturing, topology, concept accuracy. Let's jump into the first one. Okay, so the first one we're going to start off with is a low poly chandelier, and I just finished modeling this one yesterday, actually. And because it's low poly, I'm going to do this with the smart topology, which is supposed to be game-ready assets. For the poly count, I'm going to give it about 6,500, and then I'll hit generate. Now, this is going to go really fast. I did not speed that up at all, and it's already done. Let's texture this, and then we'll bring the fully textured one into Blender. So I'm gonna hit texture. I'm gonna give it the chandelier image, and let's give it its best shot. I'm gonna give it an 8K texture, and that's gonna take a little while, so I will speed this video up. Okay, the textured one is done. We'll go ahead and pull that up, and we'll download this and then look at it inside of Blender. Okay, we're in Blender, and on the left side is my current mesh, and then on the right-hand side is the AI. You can see here's the UV. It's pretty terrible, so that's definitely a 1 in terms of rating. And we can even see here that there are some artifacts for the texturing, which, given the state of the UV, your only option here is to paint directly on the model if you want to try to revise it. So texturing, it gets a 1. Okay, so let's take a look at the model completeness for the concept next. And off the bat, I see 4 issues. The first is up here should be a chain. The next is right here are hooks, but this is also supposed to be a chain. Down here in this area, we can see that these are chains, but incomplete. And then the last thing is between these 2 wood panels is supposed to be a metal panel, and it just chose not to render that. Then there's a few kind of inconsistencies, if you will. So these chains are not uniform in terms of sizing. They're a little bit all over the place. So I would probably go and just remake the chains. They're not terribly difficult to do. And then, of course, there's some movement and things that you'd want to do to kind of add to the realism. In terms of the topology, one of the things that I find best to do with AI stuff is triangulate to quads. Now, this is not that bad. There's some spots where you definitely want to clean up what's going on here, but that's all mostly easy fixes that you can do. There's just kind of strange spots where poles were put that didn't really need to be. The other thing that we would have to do if we wanted to use this is go through and clean up faces that you don't necessarily need in the game just to kind of optimize for performance. I don't really think that's a fault of the AI. That's kind of more the problem here is that we can't describe intent when we're generating our models, so there's no way to know exactly how this model is going to show up in the game. In terms of rating, I would put the topology at a 2. I don't think it's that bad. And I would put the consistency with the concept also at a 2. There's the problems that I described. There's actually also 6 chains here when there should only be 4. But again, that's kind of an easy fix. Okay, let's do the second model, which is a character. This is Moonhowl from our game Shatter, and I'm actually going to trigger 3 generation types with this. So the first that we'll do is the smart topology. It's the same mode that we just did, and I'm going to give it a poly count of roughly 8,500. I think his regular one comes in about 7,900-ish. And then while that's going, I want to trigger 2 high detail. One I want to do with multi-view, and I did just 2 views. I didn't do the right side, so we'll generate with that. And then when you go to multi-view, it disables ultra mode, and I want to see what we get from that. So we're going to do one with just the front view, but ultra mode set up. And then you know what, while we're at it, I'm going to do a 4th one and turn off auto split and see what we get. So I can see one's back. I'm actually going to let these other ones run moment and we will take a look at all 4 when they're done. So I will speed up this video. Okay, we have all 5 that have finished generating, so we'll take a quick look through them. This is the Smart Topology version that's also split by parts, so we can kind of see how it generated them out. And then we have the high detail one. This was the multi-view, which came out super funky. The hand is something. The next one we have, this was ultra mode with auto split off. So this had only 1 image reference, which is why we kind of see the tail has a wrap around it, which it wouldn't normally. And then it really, all of them, I think, has a problem kind of conceptually with this idea that he's got this, wrap around like hap skirt thing going. Kind of turned it into pants. And then this last one is the Meshy7 Ultra Mode with auto split is what we're seeing here. And if we go into kind of this print mode, we can also see this one's separate. So let's trigger 2 textures. I can't trigger a texture on this one, it seems, but we could do one here. But we'll do a multi-view texture because I think it was mostly pretty accurate. So we'll do a multi-view. We'll set it to 4K and let that go. And then for the lower poly one, I'm not going to do a multi-view because I got it wrong. So I think that'll only mess with it, but we'll start that. Okay, so texturing is back. This is the low poly Smart Topology. And again, it only had a single reference. We'll take this one into Blender, which you can kind of already see what we're dealing with in terms of artifacts. And then this was the high poly model. And this, again, had the front, side, and back references for texturing. And I mean, boy, you can really see a lot of artifacts and issues that it has. All right, let's jump into Blender. Okay, so texturing wise, we've already taken a look at the artifacts. So I want to just show you the UV map, which is terrible. It's one thing I really, really wish that AI would get a lot better at is the ability to correctly UV unwrap things. For reference, this is what it looks like for our UV map for the actual character. Okay, so jumping into the model itself, mostly looks pretty good. If we look at triangles to quads, we can kind of see there's, definitely some cleanup that needs to happen, but it's not super bad. I think the cleanup is something that, could be pretty manageable. There is some weirdness. I'm not entirely sure, for example, what is going here. This might just be something where, you merge and you're okay. Kind of looks like it. So there's some cleanup that would need to happen. Then in terms of the reference, there's obviously parts that it got, incorrect because it had to kind of guess what was happening behind. But then there's some stuff that it should have been able to do correctly, like splitting out this cape. That was very clear in the reference. I would say the front part of the belt is a little bit off as well, and that was pretty clear in the reference. The skirt, it mostly got correct, especially compared to the other ones. And while this is separate in the back, this is actually something that could be fixed pretty easily. So you could kind of bridge that. I'm not terribly worried about that. Obviously, the feet and the hands need to get cleaned up. And then I would say one thing that I'm a little disappointed with is the face. So his actual face is a little bit the snout is shorter and it's a little bit wider, whereas this kind of reminds me of, I think this is Anubis, right, with the ears and the long snout. So I think it leaned a little bit more towards that than the actual reference itself. The last thing that I'll call out is while the armor is off, one thing that I kind of tend to look at with this type of stuff is how close is it to having a base model that I could then go and do something with. So for this, for example, if we hide out the armor pieces, this isn't that far off from having a base model that then you could go, once the topology was cleaned up, you could go and start to add armor pieces off of. So that's another thing to kind of consider as you're looking through these pieces. So from a rating wise, texture, I'd put it a 1. Topology, I'd probably put this at a 2. I have seen a lot worse. And for concept, I'm going to go with 1. I think it could have done a better job of matching the concept with the pieces that it could see. I'm not really penalizing it for the stuff that it came up with behind because obviously you didn't know what was back there. All right, so that's the video. If this style of testing AI tools is interesting to you, let me know and I'll continue to do more as I try out new tech. I've also been kicking around the idea of a tutorial series that walks through the whole pipeline for making 3D models, but as you saw here, AI really isn't something that you can one-shot good production assets with. Depending on the situation, it can accelerate your workflow. You still very much need a human in the loop, same as with coding. So the series would show how you can use those AI tools, and then it would still teach what you need to know with the traditional ones. So let me know in the comments if either of those are something that you're interested in.